Hi everyone and welcome to your daily tarot guidance. Today's cards are clearly reflecting heavy influence of the retrograde planets we have in the sky in the present moment, and we're talking about Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn and Venus. Now even though retrogrades are absolutely normal and necessary part of any cycle, their energies are perceived as somewhat negative because it puts a lot of pressure on the psyche, on the soul, on the individual, on our decision making processes, and that's why it usually conjures up a lot of stress and inner restlessness in our lives. So, this is where the negative tag or the misfortune or when the stagnation begins is usually bestowed on the retrograde phase of the planetary movement, but I can assure you that it is definitely not anything bad or negative or the day of reckoning, but it is simply a moment of the year, a moment of the cycle when we have to reflect and when we have to process many things much more intensely than at any other time because our futures and our plans and the realization of our goals, both from a big karmic perspective, but also from a very practical human perspective. So it is absolutely necessary. That is why the reading is opened by the Six of Swords, and this tells us that right now things are a little bit different because very many things in our lives appear to us as if they're stagnating, as if we don't have a lot of momentum, progress, evolution in our lives. But this is actually just an illusion because the truth is that all of us are going through a major transition where we shift the old and enter into the new. But whereas in the past, especially in 2019, we had a lot of time and opportunities and even divine guidance to process the very heavy emotional, psychological parts of our stories and close the doors to that aspect of the past. But right now, the Six of Swords is inviting us to process all of that mentally. When we process very deep and relevant emotional issues, now that takes a lot of time. And there's no quicker or hastier or instant way around it. When we have to deal with emotions, well, then we need a lot of time. And that's why the year 2019 was the way it was. It was like being under mountains of unresolved emotional issues from the past. And right now, all of this is happening very, very, very quickly mentally, where we process it in our mental sphere, where our mind comes to turn with whatever happened to us emotionally. This happens very, very quickly. So, whereas in 2019, most of us had all year to the disposal, we had a lot of time on our hands to purge, to come to terms with everything that we needed to find our inner truth. This is where mentally we only have a couple of months at best, and yes, absolutely, those months seem like stagnation, seem like we're blocked, seem like we're so very confused mentally because our minds cannot grip, cannot ground in the future. But this is actually a positive thing. When the mental sphere cannot hook itself into the future, because why does it try to hook itself into the future? Because the future is open to all possibilities and it knows it. We know instinctually that the future can be totally different, that it is never set in stone. It doesn't matter what we believe in, as in our principles, our maybe religious or spiritual view of things. The mind still knows that every second of the future is open to new, is open to a very positive uncertainty where not just the good things are uncertain, but we also have a chance to get rid of any negative thing or any obstacle that is blocking us. And that is why the mind has a natural tendency to hook itself in the future, because that is where our goals, dreams, desires are more alive than ever. but when the future is so very uncertain that we cannot even plan, we cannot even envisage anything that might happen to us, well, that is when the mind has no choice but to seek options, possibilities in the present moment. But that is an uncomfortable energy because, in the present moment, we don't just have our own personal issues and dramas, our unfulfilled plans, whatever we do not make progress with, but we also have the global situation. We also have a very uncertain economic future globally. So that is why things seem so very difficult in the present moment. But I have to repeat what I said at the beginning of the reading, just because it seems like a big stagnation and blockage and all of that to us in the present moment is definitely not like that in reality, because we are progressing, we are transiting out of this. Just that our emotional worlds are pretty much confused in the present moment, because we still have to come to terms with how we feel to whatever happened to the world in the present moment. That affects all of us, and we cannot even expect ourselves to stand from a place of total emotional clarity, because it would be ridiculous, and that certain kind of emotional clarity is definitely an illusion. Confusion is much healthier in the present moment than being grounded in something which is only a byproduct of our imagination. We are definitely empowered internally. We are, aligned with our inner truth, but that doesn't mean that we are aligned with the outer truth. That doesn't mean we have everything we need to know how we feel clearly about what is going on in the world. But at the same time, the mind is also confused as well, because there is so many things it has to figure out, and this is where it's up to the mind. It's only up to the mind. So basically our mental spheres are carrying our crosses in the present moment, and that is not easy. So yes, it's because of that heavy weight, because all of the worries and that our minds cannot grip the future, it seems like a massive stagnation to us, but we have to accept the truth that it's actually not. This is a moment of big transition, and things are happening so much quicker than we actually realize. This is definitely not the year 2019 all over again. We are not trapped, we are not shackled, we are not frozen, but rather we are just going with the flow. But because of the flow is so very unusual right now, because we are living the shift of an era, we are living a massive pivotal point where it's about humanity as a collective, basically like leaving the dark ages and entering a modern era symbolically. So we cannot even expect ourselves to be masters, to have all the answers. We can't even expect our intuition to be spot on, because the future is not created yet. That's exactly why it's a big pivotal point, because we don't know what we're heading into, and it is fine like that. It is supposed to be like that. We are not even supposed to know. We're not supposed to have all the answers, because that is exactly why it's a very powerful period of evolution. When there's muddy water and the water is very agitated, the pollution fills the water and the water isn't clear, but in time, the pollution is going to set on the bottom of the water, of the container basically, and that is a process of decantation. And that is exactly what is happening in the present moment, where in a very close future, in 2021, we can totally separate the clear water from the pollution, because it has settled to the bottom. It became crystal clear to what the pollution actually is. But as I say, this is something which is happening globally, collectively, and that is why it's affecting us so very much, because the collective is made out of individuals, as in all of us are doing this our own unique special ways, and this is leading basically to the reconfiguration of the future. So whatever we're doing internally right now is the foundation of the future. And that is exactly why all of this is a huge transition. So we shouldn't even take anything we have or do not have in our lives in the present moment as granted, because chances are everything is gonna change. We're going to lose a lot of stability, what we see in the present moment as stability, and we'll have very many different options than the ones we might expect or desire in the present moment. So being a little bit ungrounded, being a little bit, hanging in the air, our minds not being able to get a stable grip on anything, past, present, or future, that is also a positive thing, because when that boat, the Six of Swords, the boat where you travel, you transition, well, if there's nothing keeping you in chains, well, then when that boat picks up speed and momentum, you're going to flow with it naturally and very, very quickly. So even if things seem a little bit slow in the present moment due to those retrogrades, don't fear, don't panic. All it takes is a massive quantum leap and we're already there. So don't be stressed by time. Don't be stressed if things are not moving as fast as you like. You're still safe. Everything is still exactly as it should be, because it doesn't matter how the future is going to look like, even if it's totally uncertain, even if that future dimension, that new paradigm isn't created yet, because you personally are still safe because of all the decisions, choices, and lifestyle and inner priorities you adapted all throughout this life. So you have done all the work that you needed to have a safe and secure place in the future, and that is why exactly the High Priestess is telling you that you have everything covered. Your human self, neither your mind or heart knows this for certain, but your intuition knows it 100%, and that is why deeply, intuitively, if you dig deep inside your soul, you're not worried whatsoever. You're actually quite confident. It's like your soul just sitting on a sofa and waiting for the show to unfold before your very eyes, because it just knows that you're okay, and it has all the reasons to feel safe and secure, because it knows that you have done all the work necessary karmically, so you cannot go wrong. It doesn't matter what kind of future the world or the collective is going to have, because you are still going to be safe and secure no matter what. You earned it, you worked for it, you have done infinitely great deeds in your past, even when you were powerless, even when you were defeated, even when your life was hell. You still did a lot of good deeds, you still lived a life of compassion, you still tried to embody truth, and that is what matters. They have a saying that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. This might be very true in your case, but you already cleansed and purified whatever good or excessive good or bad your good intent has done in the past. So you're clear right now, and when your karma is clear, well, then only your good intent counts, because the good intent, it doesn't matter how it affected the karmic flow, that still remains, that is still untouched. The universe, karma, and reality itself is actually built on good intent, because all of us can be naive or a little bit silly or stupid, especially when we're young. So no one even expects us to be able to, achieve instant success with our good intent. But after we learn, after we absolve, after we purge, however our excessive good intent affected the karmic forces, well, then we're already clear. We're good to go. And all that remains is actually the good intent, because that is eternal, just like bad intent. We can fix and erase everything that we have done, facts of the action, but the intent is never erased. The intent always stays there as an information, as the informational charge. And basically that is what matters. This card is Judgment reversed, and this is a very significant card because the Judgment card basically represents a worldview. It represents a very powerful perspective that gives us stability, that gives us power, that makes us who we are, and our perspectives, our vision, our point of view, however we perceive reality, is actually what creates our sense of reality, because the perception is also our own relationship to the external world. So in the present moment, our relation to the external world is kind of uncertain because the collective perception, worldview of the present moment is already shifting. The old paradigm is collapsing. Our sense of normality is totally different, or maybe different isn't the most appropriate word because there isn't any. So it's not even different, it's non-existent in the present moment because normality basically needs a little bit of time and practice and the routines to repeat themselves to, install itself into our brain, our neurons, in order for us to even physically, neurologically adapt to a totally new paradigm. So we cannot expect ourselves to feel extremely empowered, stable, 100% hopeful and confident of the future that we are awaiting. Neither can we expect us to perceive in a very crystal clear manner that we are actually transitioning to that new stability. We must accept that yes, we may be divine beings, we may have divine sparks, intuition, sixth sense, but in the present moment that may not mean that much when the human being who we also are, in a big process of stepping into the new, and a human being that we are needs much more time and conditions where not just the sixth sense but all of the other five senses have to tell us as well that we are living the new, that we have already stepped into the new, and until that moment arrives, when it comes, we cannot expect ourselves to be that much on top of our game. The Three of Swords reversed and the Nine of Cups close this reading, and they deliver a very powerful divine message to all of us. And it says that it doesn't really matter what our plans are, what our hopes are, what future we would like to experience, or how we even relate to the present moment turmoil, may it be just individual or the global one. Many things don't matter, because what we are invited to do in the present moment is basically to just sit down with ourselves and decide that no matter what the future brings, no matter how our futures are going to unfold, the main goal of our lives, of our present moment existence, has to be happiness. Know that even the thought of this might unsettle some people, because some people judge this as selfishness, as self-centeredness, but in truth it's not really selfish. It has nothing to do with the ego, it has to do with the universe, because as above so below. If the universe is a huge singular organism made out of billions, trillions of interconnected parts, well then isn't the one singular organism seeking for its own harmony, serenity, in other words happiness, so that it can exist with itself, aligned and in perfect harmony? Well, if this is the main pattern that the divine is following and has been following every waking second of its own existence, so that is the infinity of time, then shouldn't our own personal primary goal be the same? And this isn't the kind of happiness where we condition the happiness that we are only happy if we have this and that in our lives. This is basically making the choice that no matter what, we want to be happy, that we can adapt our own psychological configuration, that Nine of Cups, in order to at least have a little bit of happiness, have a little bit of serenity and joy in our lives. And that depends so much on us and not external reality. Even if our lives would be a total nightmare, that can not take away the freedom to desire happiness for ourselves. Even if in the present moment happiness doesn't make any sense because we have so many limitations and everything, but no one can take away your wish. No one can limit what you desire for yourself. That is your free will. That is your sovereignty. That is your true divine power, that not even the divine itself can condition what you desire. Your desires are free. And that is why they're so very susceptible to unhealthy elements, to illusions, blockages, limitations. That Three of Swords, the hurt, the pain, the trauma, when other people abuse you, when you feel alone. Yes, all of those darken our souls, absolutely, because we are fragile, we are vulnerable, we are just big children at the end of the day. But it is reversed, so that means we have to release the pain, we have to release vengeance, we have to release the desire to have absolute justice in our lives and just wish to be happy, just desire happiness above all else for us, but in a way where we don't condition it, where we don't have expectations, just simply casting the desire to be happy into the universe is the actual key towards having that happiness, because the universe is infinitely intelligent, and as long as we don't condition it, as long as we don't fill what happiness has to mean with our imperfect desires, our imperfect human calculations, with all our illusions and stuff we pick up from other people and society in general, as long as we give freedom to happiness to be what it wants to be, well, that is already using the sovereignty of our divine sparks to create that happiness for ourselves. And it doesn't matter how dark, twisted, hopeless our lives are in the present moment, as long as we don't condition that happiness, it has all the chances to change and that happiness to enter into our lives in the most miraculous ways. But fear, vengeance, jealousy, envy, and conditioning must not be part of our souls, must not be part of our mental spheres, and ultimately our heart has to be free of all of this, because that is the key to having that happiness. That is the key of giving the divine unlimited power to enter our lives and deliver it to us in the most miraculous of ways. So this is basically only your hurt, only vengeance, only unable to process and accept injustice is the true limitation. That is the true poison. And releasing that, freeing yourself from everything, even conditioning what happiness has to mean for you, is the key forwards. And what better time for this, for all of this, when the world collectively can't even dream of a specific future because it collapsed on us. So this is the most ideal, the most perfect moment to desire unconditioned happiness to enter your life, and that should be the core, the nucleus, the base element of what our futures should be built on. The simple desire to be happy, to be in peace, and to have serenity in your life. And it doesn't matter how that will look like, how the universe or you, your own being, is going to enable that. As long as that is your desire, that is the principle that guides everything, without guilt and shame that it's selfish, then that is going to be exactly what reverses the judgment card for you, and your healthy life view, your healthy new paradigm is going to open before your eyes. Because if happiness is not conditioned by comparison, comparing yourself to others, on to the obsessive need to have your life just the way others have their lives, clinging to unhealthy justice, because even though your life may seem unjust to you, that doesn't mean it's unjust to the universe. Maybe you were given very powerful gifts and talents at the moment of your birth, which should have given you the opportunity to become very relevant, but if your life didn't play out that way, that doesn't mean you don't have this opportunity all your life. It doesn't mean a moment in life won't come when you align with your true gift, and then there is not going to be any obstacle which takes away your happiness. And ultimately, when jealousy, greed, envy, having to have what others have, disappears from our hearts, that Three of Swords, when all those daggers are going to be taken out of our bleeding heart, well, then the heart will heal, it will regenerate, and that is the moment when we can be aligned, our most healthy and pure and innocent sense of self-worth, because it will be so obvious to us that we're not desiring happiness for selfish reasons, but rather we're just mimicking the universe, our source, our parent, our creator, and our animator. So, desiring happiness is one of the keys to existence itself. Well, thank you so much for listening. Wish everyone a safe and blessed day. Thank you for all your support and kindness. Bye for now.